Good evening, everyone. We'll give folks just one more minute and then get started. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our first Tiger Talk of the summer. My name is Casey Ford, and I serve as Interim Director for Student Transitions in the Center for Student Leadership and Engagement. And our office is focused on facilitating a successful transition for you and for your new student as you prepare to join us at Clemson University in the fall. And so one of the ways that we do that each summer is by providing a Tiger Talk webinar series focused on some topics that we feel like are pertinent to you all as you are supporting your students through this process, and give us a chance to kind of go a little bit more in depth and answer questions that you might have as you are going through the process. And so the first one, in accordance with kind of our timeline this summer, is focused on all things orientation and advising. So when we say orientation at Clemson, we mean about 5 things. And so we are going to use this time to talk you through that process, give you a chance to understand each of those components. And then we've got some expert advisors with us tonight who will talk you through all things academic advising. All right. So we will take just a second in a moment to introduce folks on the call in addition to myself, and then we'll talk through again that content. I'll kick us off with our orientation overview, and then we will talk through advising. We will have some time for questions and answers, and then we will wrap up. As you know, this is a Zoom webinar, so similar to a Zoom meeting, as I'm sure you are all more familiar with than you would like. We've got our chat feature, we've got our question and answer feature. Audio and video has been muted just to kind of keep us on track here, but y'all are welcome to submit questions through that Q&A button there on your toolbar. And then this is being recorded, so if you think of a question later that you missed, or maybe have friends who weren't able to make this one, we will post that recording on the Clemson Parent and Family Experience portal within the next week. And if you don't know what that is, or are unfamiliar with that tool, we will send a link in the chat to get you signed up. So you should see that question and answer button again on your toolbar. If y'all will use that, that will help us get the questions directly over to us. And that will also enable us to answer some as we're speaking, as we're covering information, and then also send you some direct answers back into that portal. We will spend some time at the end of our presentation to make sure that we answer some questions as well. But then any that we don't get to for any reason, we will be able to answer and email back out to you within the next few days. And with that, I will pass it over to our 2 other panelists tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kayla Gartner. I am the Assistant Director for the College of Behavioral, Social, and Health Sciences Academic Advising Center. I am also the Academic Advisor for Communication and Sports Communication.
Hey everyone, I'm Katie Black. I'm the Director of Advising for the College of Agriculture, Forestry, and Life Sciences. And I also specifically advise our students in our undeclared program, as well as our students in the change of major process.
Awesome. All right. So as I mentioned just a bit ago, when we say orientation, we mean a few different things. And so want to talk you all through the process. Some of this maybe you have heard before, maybe hopefully your student has completed a couple of these pieces already, but want to make sure we make sure that you are all good on what each of those is. And so the very first thing, of course, is just signing up for the orientation process overall. This is done through your student's admitted student portal, which I'll show some photos of in just a minute, so you know exactly which portal we mean there. From there, students complete a virtual orientation program, which I'll talk more about in just a minute. And then, of course, academic advising, course registration, and then in addition to those pieces, we have Ready, Set, Roar, which is our optional in-person orientation experience. And then, of course, we end with Welcome Week, which happens later in August, and provides students a chance to get acclimated to campus right before classes start. So the very first thing that you and your students would have received is a version of this email. This particular screenshot is just a sample, but you would have received this leading up until May 15th. May 15th is when we opened our sign up process. And so your student received an email and you received or should have received a similar copy just outlining the process. That would have directed them to their admitted student portal. So this is what that looks like. They've got a few tabs on there. We're going to talk a lot about what is under that orientation tab, but most of the components that I'll talk about, students can always find in that admitted student portal. If they Google Clemson admissions portal, it's very likely in their inbox, but if they also just do a quick Google, that will get them to the right place as well. So in that orientation tab or that home tab, excuse me, it shows what we call the enrollment checklist. So all the things that they need to do between now and when they come to campus to make sure that they are all set. So if there's ever a question of where they are in the process or what might be holding them up, just know that they're able to see this on their end and we are as well. So we can help figure out maybe what their next step is. Under the orientation tab is where they would have signed up for orientation in the very beginning. That's also where if they choose to attend a Ready, Set, Roar session, which I'll share a little bit more about, this is also where they would register for that session as well. This form is, again, a part of signing up for new student orientation. So when they go to that admitted student portal, this is what they would fill out in addition to paying their student transition and support fee. And that is basically the major step one that leads them into the rest of that process. All students coming into Clemson are required to complete our virtual orientation program. So this is the only piece of orientation that is required, whereas maybe that traditional in-person component, maybe you have older students who completed that in the past. Maybe that's kind of what you remember being the required piece. No longer the case. So this virtual orientation platform is what we ask all students to complete. Specifically, modules 1 and 2 are what kick them off into the next part of the process. So that second module right there that says academics, when they get to this part of that module, when they get to the end of it, they are prompted to fill out a pre-advising form. We have tried to not so subtly make it clear that they must fill out this form at the end of that module in order to move along in the process. So if your student maybe thinks they've done what they need to do, they've completed both of those, worth double checking that they have actually filled out this form, because that is sort of what pushes them into the process and lets their academic advisor know that they are ready to be advised. So that's the form that I mentioned, quick pre-advising form that gives advisors some information in preparation for their academic advising appointment. So once an advisor can tell, okay, Casey has completed module 2, she's completed her form, I will now reach out to Casey and set up an appointment. Those are done virtually over Zoom. And then the next piece of that is that they will choose a time to register for classes. Realizing I left off some dates here. Our main 2 dates for course registration are the week of June 17th and the week of July 15th. Again, maybe you have students who have already gotten to this point in the process. At this point, the only ones that they are able to see and select are the ones in June. So the week of June 17th course registration blocks. And as we get closer to that time, we will open the July blocks as well. Okay, and then in addition to that process, students and families are able to attend Ready, Set, Roar, which is our in-person, again, optional orientation experience on campus. Those are connected to Academic College. So I've got the schedule here that just shows you how we've broken those down this summer. We just finished session 1 for the College of Business yesterday, and so have 10 more sessions to go throughout the summer. I've included a sample schedule for you there as well. Do want to clarify that all information that we consider critical to your student being successful, critical to your student being prepared for the fall is included in that virtual orientation program. And so certainly if you cannot make the dates for your college, or there's a conflict or anything of that sort, want you to rest assured that that is completely okay, and would offer that this is a really cool way to experience campus and connect with some other incoming students and families. So again, here is just a calendar view of what we've got going on this summer. In addition to those Ready, Set, Roar sessions, we have some additional Tiger Talks. So these webinars, which I'll remind folks of again at the end, and then our course registration weeks as well. That brings us all the way to Welcome Week in August, which will suddenly get us to the beginning of the semester. Got some assessment results for you. This is our 3rd summer of Ready, Set, Roar, and so have certainly asked for the feedback of students and families who have attended the last 2 summers and continue to hear good things from those who join us. And so would recommend that experience to any and all. All right, and then I mentioned this a little bit ago, towards the very end of the summer, as we prepare for classes, all new students are welcome to attend our Welcome Week programming. There are a few components of that are required for all new students, one of those being our new student convocation. We hold that over at Little John Coliseum the same day that we take a big class photo on the field. We have a President's Cookout where President Clements joins all of our new students. And then we have several other events there for you that we'd be sure to highlight. Our office, the Center for Student Leadership and Engagement, manages that program as well. And so we'll make sure to communicate more information about that schedule as we get closer. All right, at this point, I will transition over to our expert advisors to talk through all things academic advising.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was going first, if you were going
Look,
first.
I did the same thing, Caleb. We talked about this earlier in the week and neither one of us could remember. So we can kind of just pass it back and forth
Perfect.
as we go through this. I'll talk a little bit just to kick us off about college advising structure. Clemson is a big university, and within the colleges, and even inside of the colleges, we all coordinate advising a little bit differently. So depending on the college, depending on the major that your student falls into, advising may look a little bit different in each one of those. In a lot of our colleges, there are general advisors that students start out with, either in a college advising center or maybe even in a pre-business or general engineering type advising structure. And a lot of times your student may be handed off to another advisor later on in the process. That may be another professional advisor, or it may be a faculty advisor. So that all looks a little bit different around the university. And that's something that very likely is discussed in virtual orientation, or that's something that you can talk with your student's advisor about during Ready, Set, Roar, or your student can ask during their advising appointment what that looks like. I saw a question in the chat about change of major. I'll address that just real quick. I have a lot of change of majors. That's my main area. I specifically advise some undeclared students as well. And I'll let you know that our advisors across campus are very well cross-trained in everybody's curriculums and helping students navigate that. I'm one that believes like it's really hard to ask an 18-year-old what they want to do for the rest of their life and expect that they're going to get it right the first time. So we're very used to that. That's something we're going to help them navigate. That's something that we are here to help with. And definitely in course selection, some courses may be available to them in the major they desire, some may not. And we'll help navigate them around that for sure, depending on what that major is. You can locate, oh, sorry, go back, Casey. I didn't go all the way through the slide. I just kind of went over that one real quick. You can locate your student's academic advisor. They can find their advisor in IROR under their student profile. That's usually once they've met with their advisor and been assigned to that advisor. A lot of our colleges have those breakdowns of who advises what major already on the web, so you can find those there as well. But that your student will be well aware as they go through orientation who their advisor is and who that will be going forward into this semester. It's really important to say that advisors are not a one-stop shop. Kayla and myself are academic advisors. We do not have access to students' financial aid records. We can't advise on some topics because we simply are not aware of students' records. So it's important to know that we are going to make referrals to students to visit other offices. And that isn't because we don't want to be helpful or we're not doing our job. It's simply that, I don't want a financial aid advisor advising about academics, and they don't want us advising about financial aid. We're each going to really do a lot to stay in our lane in certain areas. Now, there's certainly some things we know a lot about. Obviously, in South Carolina with the state scholarships, Kayla and I are going to be very familiar with what those requirements are, but we're also going to refer students to go to financial aid to be sure that they are specific about which award they have. We cannot see what awards they have. And again, my goal is always to be sure that I am helping a student help themselves. A lot of times it's really easy to come in and just ask your advisor questions that we've maybe already answered or that you can even find in the catalog. I'm going to show students where those resources are so that they aren't always reliant on somebody else to answer their questions too. That way, the time that we have together is much more constructive, and it's not just about those little nuances. Now you can go to the next one, Casey.
Alrighty, so how to best support your student. Katie and I decided to use a car situation as our analogy. So we want the student in the driver's seat. We understand that high school counselors are very different from academic advisors at a college or university. We understand that is just new territory for everyone involved. But we want the student involved. We want them to make the decisions. We also want them to be fully engaged. On top of that, we want the advisor to be in the passenger seat, not the parent. So with the advisor, we're going to be like the GPS. We're going to help them navigate, but we aren't going to do all the work for them. We want to help them help themselves. One of the things I always love saying is help me help you. I can't know how to help you if I don't know what direction you're trying to go in. And then we would love the parents and guests and families to be in the back seat. We would love you to be encouraging and supporting, but we don't need you in the driver's seat or the passenger seat. There are just certain things that advisors know. I did not know until I was an advisor to really help the student best. There are certain things that, for example, if a student wants to change into a different major, or they want to add a minor, things like that, let the advisor handle that. You can encourage the student to talk to the advisor, but don't be the one to reach out to the advisor. One, we can't really talk to you all anyway due to FERPA. And so this really gives students an opportunity to be an advocate for themselves. And we're not scary. I don't think any of us bite. I haven't heard anything lately about anyone biting anyone. So they can come talk to us. We are a part of their support system while they are here at Clemson, but we need to know what they need help with in order to help them. So again, we want the student in the driver's seat, the advisor will be in the passenger seat, and we would love for the parents to be in the back seat. Okay, so these are just a couple of things, and I guess Katie, you and we can tag team. One of the things is to trust the process. I think students and parents will see that it's not for example, not your ideal schedule, or I didn't want any 8 a.m.s Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or I thought that I had credit for this, but I didn't. Am I going to be behind? Oh, I want to graduate in 3 years. I want students to take a deep breath in, and parents as well, and take a deep breath out. We will figure it out. So please, please, please just trust the process. Please know that your advisors are not against your students. We are on the same team. And, there may be some things that may be challenging to your students, some things they may not want to hear, but we are really looking out for the students' best interest. If you are just curious to what students learned in their advising appointment, ask them. My mom stayed asking me questions. She knew that she couldn't be a part of like the advising process itself, but afterwards she'll be like, how did it go? What did you all talk about? Were you sure to ask her X, Y, and Z? So definitely ask your student questions just to see that they got everything that they needed and that they really understood what was being told to them. Okay, Katie, your turn.
And I was typing an answer too to one of the questions about course availability. I'll come back around to that. I answered it real quick. Two of the ones I really want to focus on this page are refocus on the positive. Students oftentimes are venting a lot as they talk to you on the phone, as they connect with you during that first semester and really all the way through. And I really think it's important to know that you're their safe space. And by all means, they would love for you to solve their problems. Don't do that for them, right? Like be that place to refocus on the positive, reassure them that the resources are there. That's one of the things that I really look for parent partners to do with me. And the other one there that I really just want to focus on too is go to the source for answers. I am a member of the Clemson Parent Facebook group, and I think it's a great resource for a lot of things. Finding that ride to the airport, it is not a great resource for academic information. Go to the course catalog. We're going to talk a lot about resources here in a little while. And everything that Kayla and I utilize in advising is available in one of those resources too. So go to the source, email an advisor. You can email us about questions that are not specific to your student without a FERPA. You can ask about what's the required course for XYZ, and we can answer that without a FERPA. So just know that, you can help get them to those resources too. And I'll answer that question about classes being full again in a little bit more detail. Right now, current students are still in the system and have been in the system. We have classes for your students hidden behind a black curtain, and those will be released every day that we have an orientation session, every time that we have an orientation session. So actually the planning process, although I love the plan ahead tool, it's not perfect because you really are going to plan for courses that are full. That day of registration, we're going to utilize that plan to start registration. I always just tell students, don't fall in love with that. We're going to get about 50% of those courses, maybe even a little bit less, and then we'll build on it on that day. So don't panic that there is not seat availability. We're well aware. We've got those seats hidden. I'm going to talk just a little bit about your students' responsibilities, as well as our responsibilities. I think a lot about the students' responsibility, about them being a self-advocate, right? Students come to appointments with me sometimes and don't tell me about what they're going through and what they need, and they don't always share. It's really important that students be open and honest with us. As Kayla said, I can't help you if I don't know you. If I don't know what you're going through, if I don't know what your goals are, never fear. Students often fear that they were going to tell me they want to change their major, or they're thinking about 2 majors. Oh my goodness, I changed my major twice. Please tell us what other things you have on the table so that we can make the best decisions and give you the best resources in making those decisions. We want to guide you through that experience. Students need to be proactive as well, seeking out the resources that they need outside of those advising appointments too. If they're needing something from Student Accessibility Services or the Academic Success Center, they don't need us to get to those things. So they absolutely need to be seeking out some of those on their own too. Obviously, academic commitment is a big thing I look for from my students, that they're attending classes, completing assignments, all of those things that just need to get done. I obviously cannot take those classes for them. One of my biggest asks for students in the process is that they come prepared. They really need to have an active part in planning their college curriculum. We're going to give them everything that they need to know up front, and then they've got to kind of plan and track as they go throughout that. Come to our meetings with a list of classes that you'd like to take, and then we're going to be able to talk about whether those are good or what you might have to wait for, and we'll talk through those rather than expecting an advisor to tell you exactly what to take in that next semester. Students have a lot of areas they have to take courses in that they get a lot of choice, and choice is hard. Students have a really hard time when it comes to picking a class out of a list, doing the research to find out, what is this course about? What kind of class do I want to take to meet this requirement? Is really important. And, a student just asking me, I'm going to tell you what I like to take, not what you like to take. And then it's really important that students understand they have to accept final responsibility for all of the decisions that they make in this process, the courses that they select, using academic forgiveness, whatever that might be, they ultimately have to take responsibility for every one of those decisions. When it comes to what we are responsible for, we are the experts on the policy. We're going to be sure that we are giving them all of the resources and clarifying each one of the policies that the student's going to have to adhere to throughout their time here. And there's policies that they may never have to deal with, like academic probation or academic integrity, but we're here to help guide them through and adhere to those policies as they may face some of those. We're here for guidance and support. We're going to help them select that coursework that aligns best with their goals. Again, but we've got to know what those are. We're going to be sure that they're maintaining that academic plan and kind of working through those prerequisites and the courses that they've got to get through in order to achieve that degree in a timely manner, whatever that timely manner may be for them. We're also going to be that reference, that resource that we're going to refer people to other places. Like I mentioned, financial aid. We might be referring them to CAPS for counseling services. There's the Career Center to go and learn more about some of the professions that they're considering. And really, I always think of myself as a problem solver. That is really a lot of times what I'm working through is helping students deal with the challenges that they have and helping them find the resources and tools they need to fix it. And, you know, it's like a toolbox. There's a lot of tools in there, and we're going to utilize all of them to get that house built. Oh, this is probably my favorite. I'm working on a big document. For those of you that will see me in Ready, Set, Roar, I am constantly overwhelmed. I've been at Clemson for 20 years now by all the names, and I'm sure you all are as well, of all these different things that we use that you have to know. And it's like drinking from a fire hydrant, trying to learn all of these things. It's a brand new lingo and language that you've got to learn. So I'm just going to talk through a couple of these and what they are so that you know what they are. iRoar is a really important tool. It's a super big powerhouse. And in iRoar, students can do a number of things. iRoar is one of the ways that they can link out to DegreeWorks. DegreeWorks is hard to get to all on its own, but DegreeWorks is that degree audit that tells them what courses they've satisfied towards their curriculum. It also allows them to do what ifs, that if they're thinking about changing their major, they can do an audit on another degree. DegreeWorks is one of the tools that Kayla and I probably use multiple times daily. The student academic profile is in there, and that's again going to tell them information about how many credits they've earned, what their GPA is, who their advisor is. So that student profile is really important. And this is also where students will find their transcript. A lot of times students are looking for what their credit hours are and their GPA, and that's all officially located in the transcript. Students can print an unofficial transcript there. Sometimes your auto insurance may need that, so that's where they can go to get that. Official are located in the registrar. CU Navigate is the platform that we use for advising. So CU Navigate allows students not only to schedule appointments with their advisor, but also if they're wanting to explore other majors, we have explore appointments set up. That's also the same platform that Study Abroad, Health Professions Advising, and the Career Center use for booking appointments. So all of their notes are in there. All of those resources are in there. CU Navigate is also the same platform that we use throughout the semester. Kind of around midterm grades, we ask professors to report on how students are performing. Are they doing well? Are they coming to class? And that's a great way that it gives us some information. The student gets notification and the advisor gets notification that we can then be communicating about if they're needing to, you know, maybe attend class and they haven't been, or make sure that they're working on their homework assignments, whatever it might be that they're missing. So CU Navigate's another big powerhouse. The academic catalog, I feel like an old person. I wish they were still in print, but they are not. That is just not today's world. We're on Zoom and things are digital. The academic catalog, if any of you were collegiate students and had that, mine was dog-eared and highlighted and bookmarked in 100 places. And that's a really important document that I don't think students value in the same way that, again, I feel like a dinosaur, that I used to. The academic catalog is super important. That's where all the rules and regulations are, all of the policies, every curriculum, course descriptions, everything they would ever need to know is in that academic catalog, and that's available on the website. Really important to know when you go into the catalog, you've got to navigate to the year in the catalog that student is on. So all of our new students coming in are going to be on the 24-25 catalog, unless for some reason that's going to change for them. They'll discuss that with their advisor. The rules they follow are in that book, not in the 21 or the 2018. So it's really important to follow the catalog for the year that they are following, because things do change, and things have changed a lot in the last 5 years. Students definitely need to begin their Clemson email. That is through Outlook now. We used to be a Gmail campus. We're an Outlook campus now. And I will tell you as parents, one of the biggest things that you can embark on your students is teaching them email management and how to set up filters and rules in their email. So the most important emails are the things that they're seeing. I have a whole filter set up to move things that say unsubscribe at the bottom into another folder so that I'm not seeing my Old Navy coupons, right? It's important that I see the emails that are from the people that I'm communicating with about my day-to-day. Canvas is what we use for course management. So you may have had students at a Blackboard campus before, but Canvas is what we use, and that's where course management is. So there are sometimes grades in Canvas. Professors may report grades in there. However, final grades are on the transcript. There's sometimes some discrepancy there that students are not sure what their final grade is. That is on the transcript. And then nothing is probably more important than Clemson.edu. The search bar on Clemson.edu is super powerful. Again, there's a lot in there. All of the rules and regulations are accessible, and the catalog is directly linked from there. And then we've just got all these other terms. I'll fly through quick. CU 1000 is our intro course that all new students have to take. So that's something that you'll be hearing us talk about in virtual orientation, as well as course registration. Students have to sign up for that. I always talk about it just being orientation 2.0. You know, you'll go through this orientation in advance of starting school that teaches you all the things you need to know before you start. And CU 1000 kind of gets you through that fall semester and walking through some of these policies that we have to be sure students are aware of. For those reasons. The SC Reach Act is a course requirement we have for all new students. And so you'll hear about that. That's a requirement for students to take. Some students may come in with exemption credit for that. Again, advisors will talk about that in their appointment. Course program of study is a regulation from the federal government regarding students who are using federal aid. And so that requires that students, depending on the kind of federal aid they have, be in a certain number of courses towards their degree. So sometimes you'll hear advisors talking with change of major students about, you know, you've got to be in 12 credit hours that count for the major you're declared in, or 6 credit hours. So that's one of the things we talk a lot about too, is that course program of study. FERPA, I know Kayla and I have said that word a lot, but that's that federal regulation that protects students. So we are only able to talk about a student's record with the student. There is a FERPA waiver that's out there that you can receive. It is not a sweeping document that gives you access to everything. It's between you and your student and maybe that advisor or that professor for that term. So again, it's not a sweeping document that covers all things, and we do not have one document that covers all of Clemson. BA versus BS, that's a bachelor's of arts versus a bachelor's of science. There's also double majors and dual degrees. There's minors, there's academic forgiveness. There's just all these things that I 100% feel your pain. I was in a training today feeling like a total dummy because of the lingo that I just didn't understand. So I feel you, and just know that there's a lot of resources out there, and we will walk your student through every one of those. Couple of tips and tricks about all of the things that we're navigating here. Again, I mentioned this a little while ago about registration. So once your student has met with their academic advisor, they'll be released and able to pick their time ticket for registration. And if they haven't done that yet, time is running out for June registration. This next week is the last week to get advising appointments in, and some of those dates are already filling up. So at this point, if your student has not been advised or has not selected their time ticket, they may not be registering till July, but that's totally fine. As I mentioned, we hold back seats behind the black curtain for every registration session. So there's no big benefit in going first in June. There's no big benefit in going in the morning versus the afternoon. There used to be that just doesn't exist anymore. We roll out seats every time, which does mean that it's not that all the seats are available. We may run out of seats in one orientation session. So just know that we do our best to disseminate those. I always think about course registration and seats a lot like a Clemson football game in Atlanta. Everybody seems to get on the interstate at the same time, and we all start slamming on brakes, and you know, it feels like we'll never get there. But in the end, we'll all get there if everybody just slows down. There are plenty of seats in our classes for all students, so don't worry about that. I really think the plan ahead tool is really important. I don't know if Kayla agrees with me on this, but I really push students to do the plan ahead. I, in fact, even go behind them and check their plans. It's really important that students do that plan ahead. It's their first opportunity to really see what the system looks like. Now, the plan ahead's not perfect. It is a system that lets them build a mock schedule, but it lets them make a lot of mistakes. It'll allow them to take classes they're not eligible for. It'll allow them to register in the plan for classes that are restricted to certain majors. So the plan's not perfect. It doesn't give them those warnings, but it's a great way to get started. And again, if they'll read some of the things that are layered into section details, they'll be aware of those things. But again, I don't think that students see that quite yet. There's a lot of common errors that students get for co-requisites or prerequisites. There are classes that I'll use COM 1500 as an example. That's probably one of the hardest classes to register for. Students in COM 1500 need the course and the lab. And if you read in the course details, it tells you which lab sections you're eligible for based on that course. It's not that you can just register for any lab. They have to match, they have to coordinate. So it's important to read some of those things. The advanced search is a huge thing. That's one of the things I love. In the advanced search, if students are trying to find a course that satisfies a general education requirement, like a social science, they can just search for classes that satisfy that requirement and trim that list of classes down a lot. So I really like that piece of it too. There is another one of those lingo and terms. Clemson now requires that if the student is not on Clemson Wi-Fi, they have to use our virtual private network to get into the IROR and registration system. And I really recommend that students spend some time with that virtual private network before registration. I personally like the downloaded VPN, the method 2 that the CCIT website recommends. It downloads Cisco onto the computer. They then can just pull that up to log into the VPN. The CU Apps is a web-based VPN. So it has a little bit of, it's a website within a website, and it runs sometimes a little bit slower. So especially on registration day, I like the downloaded VPN a lot better. Email and appointment etiquette. I mentioned this earlier again, just teaching your student about an email management system. Clemson heavily utilizes email, and they're going to get a lot of email at their clemson.edu address from professors, advisors, offices on campus, clubs, organizations. And so coming up with an email management system and really learning how to manage email is really important. And then also email and appointment etiquette as well. Showing up to their appointment on time, coming prepared, addressing their professors, knowing whether they are a doctor or a mister, and using that appropriately is really important in email. And, just being clear about who they are, what their ID number is, what they need. Having that email etiquette is really important on campus. Mastering degree works. I think if a student early on can master degree works, they will avoid a lot of confusion for themselves. I spend a lot of time with my students trying to make sure that they know how to do that. And there's a whole video on how to do that too. Changing majors at Clemson can be difficult. There's a wide variety of what that looks like. Some majors are really easy. You want to change your major to that? Great, we're going to change your program. Some majors have a certain GPA that's required. Some majors have certain courses that are required. And some majors have an application process. And it's not a guarantee that students will get to change their major. So there's a lot of varying degree based on what that program is. And we'll walk through students again, what those majors are and if they're on their list. One of the things I ask students to do a lot of time, again, I'm the undeclared, undecided advisor. I don't necessarily need to know what major you're interested in and want to pursue. You might not know, but I do need to know what majors are off the table because I can't advise for 80 majors, right? So if you can take that list of 80 majors and trim it down and get rid of the ones we know you're not interested in, give me a list of 10 and 15, and I'm going to be a much better advisor in helping you pick courses and knowing what's going to count for maybe 15 of them, maybe 10 of them. I build students a matrix. Hey, here's one class that we know will count for every major on your list. This class we have to take to get into this major that you're interested in. So we'll walk through all of that with them and what that process looks like. Yes, sometimes at Clemson changing majors is easy. Sometimes it is very difficult. And again, that clemson.edu, there is so much on that website. I sometimes just feel like a Google machine that I go turn my computer and show a student, look, if we just search for academic forgiveness, here's that policy and here's how that works.
I just want to say something real quick about the email and appointment etiquette. So please encourage your students to, when they send an email, we more than likely will not respond in the next 2 to 3 minutes because they send an email, and so probably 40 or 50 other emails have probably come in at the same time. Our rule of thumb in our office is usually 48 hours, so 2 business days. If it's a really heavy time, so I would say like September to October, and then like February to March or April-ish. It may take 3 or 4 depending on. So please give us grace. I think some of my biggest pet peeves are the student sends me an email, then they send me another one within an hour, and then they call me, then they call the front office, and it's like I see it and I acknowledge it, but I just can't get to it at this moment. One new pet peeve that I have developed, so to speak, with the new generation is they will send the email and then they will forward the email that they just sent. That I don't know why that bothers me so badly, but it does. Like, again, I see the email. Please give me an opportunity to respond. So if you could encourage your students to do that, that would be great. Also, please have a subject. This is not a text message. This is an email. So I need to know what I'm responding to, and do not have your question in the subject and then the body is blank. Email etiquette is very important. And appointment etiquette, please do not be in the car during your appointment. If it is virtual, that is dangerous. I do not care if you are in the passenger seat, because this is already violating FERPA, because nobody else should be a part of the appointment anyway. And are you really paying attention to your appointment when you are in the car with 3 or 4 of your friends? So just students just need to be mindful. Just think if it was the other way around, like they would want that person to be engaged and they would want that person to be attentive. So we want the same thing as advisors. With changing majors, we don't need to know that right now, like during orientation advising. But if you tell us, maybe like if students tell us first semester, freshman year, second semester, freshman year, well, unless like you're wanting to switch like right in the fall, but like if a student wants to like add a major, I should have said that they want a double major or double minor. It's like, that's great, but I don't need to know that right now. So you can tell me that in the fall or the spring, and then we can kind of get the ball rolling with that. We want to focus on your first major and your first minor if it is required, and then we will go from there.
I'll also add real quick before we end up with some closing remarks here. One of the things I talk a lot with my new students about is that I'm probably, and I don't know if Kayla is as well, I'm a pretty conservative advisor in that first semester of that freshman year. Some of you may be transfer parents, and even as a first semester transfer student, I am an advisor who tends to be a little bit more conservative, depending on what the major and the long-term goal is. I may encourage your student to take a few less credit hours or push something off till the next semester if it's possible. I would rather a student come back after their first semester and say, wow, you really didn't have faith in me and I made a 4.0, than for a student to come back and say, you pushed me too hard and I have a 0.08. I can do a lot with a student with a 4.0 and getting you pushed a little bit heavier than worrying about a student being dismissed, suspended. So that's another thing. If you're hearing that, again, it's not that I don't have faith in my Clemson students are way smarter than I was when I was a Clemson student. Absolutely. But, again, I want to be sure that we have a rock solid first semester. It's not necessarily the courses, it's the transition. Coming to Clemson in a fall semester with all the distractions that Dabo Sweeney's going to throw at them, there is a lot going on. And especially in those first few weeks, there's just a lot to manage, and learning how the systems work. Again, I would much rather end up with a student who over succeeded and I underestimated them than the other way around.
Awesome. Other questions? Looking at our list here. Welcome week schedule. Yes, I can flip back to that.
That was a good debut. They hadn't shared all those details with us yet, so that was a good debut of dates.
Yes. That is also a reminder for me to make sure y'all have those dates as well. Yes, this is still in the works, but these are the ones that we know for sure for Welcome Week this coming fall. So definitely grab a screenshot of this if you would like. Again, this will be recorded and should be on our website shortly. We're trying to make it so that our website integrates with Clemson's overall calendar so that folks are getting the same information no matter where they look. So give us a little bit more time on publishing those. But the other thing I'll say about our Welcome Week programming is that all of our incoming students, no matter what, will be put into a small group for that week. And so just know that they will receive some specific information, some contact information for a student leader, a welcome week leader who will guide them through that process. And then again, more to come on our website and through our email channels as well. Yeah, so Leader Day, Clemson Leader Day has been a part of Welcome Week the last couple of years. A big part of our office, so the Center for Student Leadership and Engagement, what we've been charged with, I should say, is to make it so that each Clemson student has an experience of leadership and kind of learns to define what that is for them. And so I'm a part of the transitions team. Another area in our office is called the Leadership Education and Development team. And that staff essentially facilitates a day of leadership education for all new students. So they have some small group activities, again, with their Welcome Week leader. They learn about opportunities to get involved in campus and kind of figure out what it means to be a leader as a college student. And so that's what that day is focused on. Seeing another question about Outlook, 1,000% yes. I will just say from personal experience, I'm not there if it's not on my Outlook calendar, and I have been that way for a long time. So if your students are similar to that, or maybe could be in this transition and maybe don't quite realize what it means to manage that time, I think all four of us on the call would strongly recommend your student taking advantage of that as well. Clemson staff members use Outlook, which is helpful. And so I think if you can take advantage of those tools as well, would love to go in a rant about Schedule Assistant, but I will save that for another time. All in all, a big fan of what Outlook has to offer.
Great questions coming in the chat. As quickly as we can type, keep them coming and we can answer them live too. So I'll answer the question about change of major right now. There is a place, I don't know if you can go back in your screen, Casey, to the portal. There is a place right now in the Students Admitted Student portal, if they're wanting a change of major, that they can make that request. Right now, majors are frozen. We will not change a student's major right now. And that's just because honestly, if we'd allowed students, they would change their major daily all the way through orientation, and we would not know who would be advising them. So we locked it down right there at the start of orientation so that they would be assigned to an advisor for advising. And so it's up there at the very top left in the gray box, request a change of major. So right now they can put that request in, and that request will sit pending until later in July. There are majors that are closed. There's a handful of majors that the request will not be granted, and the student will be notified if that's the case. And if they are allowable to be in that major, that change of major will happen in July. All of us as advisors will do our best, depending on what major they want to be in, to advise them for that major and get them registered for courses for that new major. Again, we're pretty familiar of what majors they will and will not get into with that request. And we'll get them registered for those ahead of that change of major happening. When registration happens, all of us as advisors, whether we are registering with your student live or we have a Zoom room available for students to come to for troubleshooting, again, each one of us does that a little bit different depending on our load. I personally will have about 15 students every time we register. And so I register live with my students. I bring them all into a Zoom room and we do it together. So it's important for my students that they know how to screen share on Zoom, because if they have a problem, I need to see the problem. And sometimes students don't have that set up, and that then requires them to shut down Zoom and come back. So be sure they know how to do that in advance and have given that a shot. And we'll do that live in the registration. Other colleges and other advisors simply have their room open for troubleshooting that a student can jump in when they have problems. So it just depends on who their advisor is and what their major is on how that happens. I know I answered a question really quickly about somebody had asked about if a student gets suspended, is there a notification sent home? And that is not the case. If a student is on probation, suspended, or dismissed, that communication is only sent to the student. Again, with FERPA, nobody knows who pays the bills. Nobody knows who's responsible. It is the student who is responsible. So that's who they get notification goes to. The question about immunization records, if you guys are getting those submitted, that should not be a problem for registration this go round. It's usually a problem for us in the fall for spring registration more than anything. Those are the big ones that hold us up at that point. So does the student have to make the change of major request even if they've been communicating with the advisor? Yes. The system changes their major automatically. It's not something that we do. So that's something that they do have to do in the system. Unless it's maybe something that they're, in my college, we have an environmental and natural resources major that has 3 concentrations. So if they're moving from conservation biology to natural resource management, they wouldn't have to do that in the system. We could do that in-house. So that one's not something they'd have to do in the system. How do we pay tuition? And there's actually a webinar tomorrow that financial aid is going to have about tuition. Until students register for classes, they don't have a fee bill. And in fact, fee bills will not run until later in July. So there's no tuition to pay yet. Enjoy that for a little bit of time until those run, but that'll happen later in July. And they'll send out the schedule of when those are due. It is very important that students are aware of the schedule. I also will say in IROR, under the financial aid tab, students can also give you access to their financial aid. That's one of the things that you can have your own login to. And so that's a great way too, to be sure that you're aware of the dates and deadlines. If a student does not pay their bill by the deadline, their entire schedule is dropped. And that is one of those days that Kayla and I go into panic mode and are not answering emails because we are triaging all day long, helping students get their schedules back. The question about Ready, Set, Roar and majors. I mean, if you're coming on a day that, you know, the day that my college is going a little bit later this week, and on that day we share that day with 2 other colleges, that's not a big deal, but College of Business is not available on that day. So Ready, Set, Roar is major specific to the major that you are currently in. So usually the major that you are admitted into.
Correct.
If a student took questions at a local community college, looks like Kayla's answering that one. You want to answer that one?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that Clemson's TCEL. If you just Google that, you will be able to see how it will transfer and if it transfers. As far as the transcripts for high school or community college, I would get that in as soon as possible. And speaking of that, if students did dual enrollment, a lot of students have thought that if the dual enrollment is on their high school transcript, then they'll get the credit. That is not the case. They have to send an official transcript from that college or university in order to get that college credit. Same thing with AP and IB scores, that needs to be sent directly from the website. The transcript just tells us that they took the course, but we don't actually have that score or that credit until they officially send the scores in and officially send the transcript in from that college or university.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know we're getting a lot. I'm gonna answer real quick those geared towards Welcome Week. So I'm gonna come back to this real quick. So new student move-in, of course, happens that week. I saw a question asking about Panhellenic primary recruitment, which you're correct, also takes place that week. So the answer is yes, those do overlap. I will say that we work really closely with the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life to make it so that kind of what we consider to be the critical elements for new students, some of the ones I was mentioning earlier, new student convocation, Clemson Leader Day, Jumpstart workshops offered through the Academic Success Center, those big pieces will not conflict with those Panhellenic recruitment activities. So if you have a student who is interested in going through that recruitment process, has registered, the way that we typically manage that is through really just communication through our office and theirs. There's typically a form that they fill out kind of explaining that there's that conflict. And then again, Fraternity Sorority Life office folks are really, really good about just excusing those students at that point to ensure that they can attend kind of what we need them to attend in that first week right before classes. Welcome Rally is an event that happens outside at the Carolyn Gardens at our amphitheater. So one of our student orgs here on campus called Central Spirit, who is exactly who they sound like. They're sort of our athletics. Someone in my office called them a walking pep rally today. I think that's an accurate description of who Central Spirit is. They take advantage of that time to teach new students Clemson traditions, talk through what a game day looks like. We usually have some folks out there tabling at that event as well. And then that usually leads into a night of some inflatables on the intramural field. So when we say welcome rally, that is what we mean by that. Student convocation, again, that takes place in Littlejohn Coliseum. And that is all of us together. There's a welcome from the president, a welcome from academic administrators, and that typically leads into our athletic event. So folks have a welcome from all the coaches, and there's lots of hype, and there's music, and there's t-shirts. It's just, again, it's just a very Clemson day condensed into about 3 hours. Jumpstart workshops, we will talk more about those. Our very last webinar, actually on August 6th, features the Academic Success Center and Jordan Worrell, an assistant director in my office who manages Welcome Week. And so we will be sure to spend some extended time on what we kind of think is key to know as you head into that first week of classes. But really would encourage your students to set aside time for some of those workshops. Those have some different focuses, but they always include a lot of the things that we've been talking about tonight: time management, how to be successful as a student, really, really successful opportunities to make sure that your students have a plan heading into the fall. Tiger Prowl is a huge student organization fair that takes place in the stadium. And so that students will have an opportunity to walk around and chat with student organizations and sign up if they're interested in those. First day of classes, of course, is what concludes Welcome Week. And then what I would say are the still in the works pieces are those social events. Typically, there's a number that we offer each night of Welcome Week. So there might be silent disco and glow golf and glow skating and glow insert anything else that you could think of to do in a glow in the dark fashion. Those tend to happen. And so really geared towards one, connecting your students with other students, connecting them with a current student who can help walk them through the process, make sure that they feel ready, and then also offer them a chance to kind of lock in before classes start that next week.
One of the other things that I don't think I've plugged well enough is the Academic Success Center. And that's one of the things that I really encourage students as they maybe have concerns or worries about certain courses that they might have in that fall semester. There is so many resources through the Academic Success Center that they can go ahead and set up and know the schedule for tutoring and for peer assisted learning as they are starting those first few weeks on campus. I really encourage students to think about college like a full-time job. You're going to be here from 8 to 5 every day. And even though your course schedule may not look like that, your work schedule should look like that. So getting to campus and getting into the academics right at 8 o'clock and getting started. And maybe you're using that time for tutoring. Maybe you're using that time to read your books. Maybe you're using that time to review your notes. And doing those things makes it so much easier to enjoy the nights and weekends for the silent discos when all of those fun things are going on. And especially the classes that maybe have the student in a little bit of a worry, whatever that strength and weakness might be, building that into the schedule early on, and then they can always shed it off later if they're finding success in it. Building it into the schedule early rather than trying to fit it in later is always my advice. That's really important. And there was another question that popped by that I think somebody must have answered virtually because I didn't answer it. How do students get jobs on campus? There are so many jobs on campus. I would encourage students to not focus on that as right out of the gate as a new student. Again, there's a lot of just time management to face, but certainly as they start getting themselves acclimated and start looking, almost all of the different colleges and offices on campus hire students. This university would not run without students, and this town would not run without students. So there's so many opportunities. Unfortunately, in a lot of the offices on campus, my office is open from 8 to 5. And so it is hard for a student to build that into their schedule. So they might have to look for something in the library or somewhere else that might be open a little bit later or on the weekends if they're looking for something to work more around their course schedule. So it just depends what kind of job they're looking for. Certainly if they can find something in their scope, especially as they start moving into that sophomore and junior year, and maybe want to do a research project that has some pay along with it in their college or in their program. Those are great things to do to get experience.
I would also add, y'all are really you're hitting on the August 6th webinar. You really are. We will also feature the Center for Career and Professional Development in that conversation. And so as we get closer to that time, if you all have questions about some of those opportunities that Katie mentioned, internship opportunities, other ways to get connected to jobs, again, connected to your student's major, those kind of experiences, we can share those specifics in that conversation as well. All right, I'm going to give one more scan here. I think we have covered all of those questions. Appreciate you all joining us tonight. If there are any others that come in by the time I wrap us up, we'll make sure to follow up with you all after tonight and get those answered. Again, one more reminder that we have been recording tonight. And so when this recording finishes processing and we kind of get it formatted the way that we need it to, we will send that out through the Clemson Parent and Family Experience portal. That will end up also on our Clemson Family Programs YouTube page. So always there for you to go back and refer to. I know I have mentioned a couple of our other webinars for you this summer. So that one that I've referenced a couple times is that Next Steps for Success one. That's how we'll finish out the summer, but we've got several before that. And so our next one will be supporting your students' transition into Clemson on June 19th. We will talk all things move-in, all things parking and transportation, some of those key offices who kind of help get your students set up once they are here on campus. And so would encourage you to join us for those. Again, those registration links are on our website, same place that you found the one tonight. And I believe that, yes, it does. I believe that wraps us up. So thank you all again so much for joining us. And until next time, go Tigers.